Hello and welcome to mCreates, where we solve problems through great design. Today I'm going to be helping you get to grips with the pen tool in both Photoshop and Illustrator. It does seem a little bit daunting when you're first using it with the anchor points and different handles, but with this quick tutorial I'm going to help you get to grips really quickly. So stay tuned and let's get started. Now the reason that I first started using the pen tool was in Photoshop because it's a pixel based application. When you try and do any complex kind of selection of curved objects or slightly random objects, it's not really easy to select it just using the polygon tool. Even the magnetic lasso tool is just a little bit rudimentary. So the pen tool actually allows you to do a better selection with smoother lines and you have more control over where your anchor points go and where your curves go. So I'm going to start off with my Photoshop document here. We're going to go through two different icons today. One of them is a bit simpler, the pencil here, where it's mostly straight lines and then a nice curve at the end. And once we've gone through that, we'll go through the anchor points and pen tool for the more challenging pound symbol that we have here. So I'm going to zoom in on my pencil and select the pen tool down here. There are quite a few options for pen tool, but we're just going to use the standard one. So you'll see here now that we have our pen tool icon with a small star on it. So that once you've done that, the star will go away. So we are going to select the end of our little pencil here. We're just going to trace around our icon. So we start with our first anchor point, and you can see there's no lines attached here. So we just click to where we want our second anchor point to be, here. So you see now we have a really smooth, straight line, really simple. Now you can carry on doing this and create lots of straight lines, absolutely no problem. But we're going to do some curves in a minute. So that's my second anchor point, and I'm going to go all the way along. I'm going to say to about here for my third anchor point. So that forms the basis of where I'm going to start my curve, okay? Now if I trace directly across, now this time I'm going to press and hold when I put this anchor point, and as I drag my mouse you'll see the line starts to curve, and we've got two handles, we'll call them here. So toggling, once I've done that, I cannot move these handles. It starts to give me some other options. So if you're on I think it's the same for Mac and PC, if you hold the Option or Alt key, when you hover over one of these handles, you'll see that the arrow turns to like a small open-ended triangle. That allows you to dictate which direction your next anchor point is going to go in, okay? So my next anchor point is going to go in this direction, so we'll put it here. Now, if we select this handle here, which is before our anchor point, this changes the depth of the curve. So the one after it changes the direction of the next anchor point, this one changes the direction of the curve. So my next anchor point is going to be in this direction, and I'm going to put it over here. And simply join it up. So on all Photoshop applications with any selection, when you complete a selection, you'll see the small circle next to your arrow. Now here we have a selection. We just right click, make selection. Okay, done. So we've now selected our pencil. Not the best shape, but you can see it's very smooth. It's not very pixelated at all. So let's just undo this. Now I'm going to go back to where we did our curve, because while it's a nice curve, it's not exactly tracing how we want it. So let's undo that anchor point, go back onto our pen tool. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an anchor point halfway through my curve, just so we have better control over the depth of the curve. So again, press where we want the anchor point and hold, and then we can move the handles. So this looks about right to me. And now if we put another anchor point here, actually that's quite a good curve. So put another anchor point here and finish the curve. Make selection. Okay, And you'll see here we have a much better defined curve now. Now if we're to use the same principles for our more complex shape, we can put the curvature tool, the curvature kind of depth into a lot more good practice. So if we start in, we'll start in the normal kind of easy top corner. So if we start with this anchor point here, and I think the best way to get the best curve is probably halfway through. So I'll put an anchor point here, press and hold. And then I'm going to move my handle to just about here to dictate direction of the next anchor point. And I'm going to click and hold. There we go. And again, I'm just going to move that handle. Click and I'm not sure that, let's zoom in a bit. If in doubt, zoom in because you can get a better view of the path. I'm actually going to shorten this handle so I can actually see what I'm doing. I'll curve that a tiny bit. And then I'm going to dictate that this anchor point, because we're going to go straight, is going to go in that direction. Click, click, click. Again, I'm doing this quite quickly, so we can you can always tweak this as you're going around. So this curve is a lot shallower than the one that we've been working with up here. So I think I can probably just do this whole curve in one anchor point. So I'm going to put the anchor point here, press and hold, and adjust accordingly. Option key, drag this to the right direction. This looks pretty straight to me, so I'm going to put my anchor point to here. And again, this is a fairly shallow curve, so I'm just going to see how it works with one anchor point here. Okay, option key in this direction, click. And there's a few ways we could do this one. I could either be really ambitious and go from here and draw a really big nice curve like that, which works, but it doesn't get the exact proportions that I want. So just Command Z or Control Z to undo the latest anchor point. And I'm going to go to say midway past the curve here. Alright, I'm happy with that. Option key. This is probably another, it looks quite straight, but I'm going to curve it slightly. And while this is quite a deep curve, it's relatively small. So I'm going to put the anchor point here and really work that angle there. Now always remember, change your handle that's after the anchor point to define the direction. Yeah, this one let's try and do in one. I'm not quite happy with that, so I'm going to go here. Actually, I'm not happy with that either, so let's go here. And lovely. Again, this is a very shallow curve like we did on the way down, just one anchor point needed for that. Option key, dictate direction, click, click, click. And now we've got a really big curve here. Again, we're going to split this one down because if we just click our anchor point here, we're not ever going to get anywhere near the depth that we need. So I'm going to go to this section here. That looks fairly good. Dictate direction. And another point here. Really get that curve. Again, change direction. And we can close off that curve here, I think. Yep. And then again, drag that handle and join it all together. Okay, so now that we've made our shape, I'm fairly happy with it, but there are some anchor points that I want to change, I think. So, this one here looks a little bit wonky, so let's sort out this curve. Now, the way that I've learned how to do this is if you hold the Option key and click, it'll turn that into a straight line, just Command Z or Control Z, and it brings up the handles again. There's definitely a better way of doing it. I haven't worked that out yet. So, once you've got the handles up again, you just hold down the Option or Alt key and you can adjust these accordingly. So if I move that, that's a slightly smoother curve there. Let's do the same with this one. Hold the Option key, just pull that curve out a little bit more. Hold the Option key and straighten that out a bit. Option key. Okay. So I've made a few adjustments there, and now I'm happy with my selection. I can make selection. Start a new layer and fill it with my fill color. Command D. Now you'll see here we still have our like blue guidelines for the pen tool, so you can keep a hold of this, and when you hit your pen tool we can do another make selection. Okay, new layer, and we can fill it with a different color. Here we go. So that selection stays until you've deleted it. So if you click on the pen tool and then just backspace, it'll delete your selection. But I hope that was helpful in a really quick run through of how to use the pen tool on Photoshop. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video and found it useful for getting to grips with the basics of the pen tool in Photoshop. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I post weekly graphic design tips and content every Wednesday, so I look forward to seeing you next week. Goodbye.